Hey guys, Tony Gomez here, Kickster93. I'm going to show you how to change your guitar strings on the Quick. So, first and foremost, this is what you want your strings to look like. See how they're nice and wound? Those wraps. And then on the other side, if I can get in the light. See how they're nice and uniform? They're not overlaid on top of each other. Just like that. So that's what it's going to look like. So let's get started. So first what you're going to want to do is get a string winder, or if you don't have one, you could just, loosen the strings with your thumb. But I got a string winder, so it's going to save me a lot of time. There's nothing wrong with taking off all the strings at one time. The only sort of, I guess, downside to that is your setup is going to be affected, but only temporarily. It's not going to mess up your setup at all. Now, since this is a vintage Gibson SG sort of design, since it's a vintage design, they just sort of hook in there. So if you have something sort of like this, or you can cut them off if you want, but they're loose enough to where I can just hook them off. Now here, just unwind the string. Careful not to prick yourself, because if you thought stepping on a Lego was painful, you've never poked yourself with one of these, boy, let me tell you. Alright, so we got all the strings off it. Now we're going to clean the fingerboard. To clean the fingerboard, I just use this kind of a polish. The main benefit to taking off all the strings is you're able to clean your guitar thoroughly, because you get to get in through here, all the nooks and crannies and stuff like that, and you get to clean your fretboard. So basically what I do, and you don't even have to use a polish, you could just use water and a wet rag, but make sure the water's hot. And you can just, dab some water, run it through the faucet, what have you, or run the cloth through the faucet, not your guitar, with some hot water, and just go over the frets and stuff. And if it's really dirty, like mine, it's not that dirty, so I don't have to, but you can use like degreaser, and it's not gonna harm it. But the main thing you want to do is, if you use a degreaser, any kind of cleaner on your fretboard, you don't want to leave it on, right? Just apply it, put it on, wipe it off. And if you're going to use a degreaser, if you have a lot of crud on your fingerboard, you can use a toothbrush to kind of just work, in between the frets and stuff like that. And again, over here, I can go over the pickups. Everything's nice and clean. Headstop is where a lot of dust accumulates as well. And there we go. If you have a maple fingerboard, you don't have to really clean it that much. I mean, they mostly have lacquer finishes, or a poly finish, so you can just go over it with some warm water and a rag and you're good to go. So anyways, there's that. Now let's put the strings on it. Alright, so the strings I'm going to be using are D'Addario, or D'Addario, however you pronounce it, 11 through 49. And gonna start to restring. Now the good thing about these strings is they're color coded. So you see here on these, see purple, silver, red, bronze, black, green. So you kind of know which go on which, or which is which, I'm sorry. You want to put the string in that little hole right there. So put it through there, and I like to get it to where it's straight in line like this. Make sure you pull it all the way so there's no slack. Then you want to measure one peg head, so get your thumb and go all the way to this peg head, and then give yourself that much slack. Again, stretch it all the way, and then so you see how I got my thumb and index finger right here where this post is? That's how much slack you want to give. So push it like that, and that's how much slack you want to have on the string, because you don't want to just pull it all the way and then start turning. It's not going to be really effective. You're going to have some tuning problems. Also, if you wind the string too much, you'll have tuning problems as well, because it won't properly lock. It'll keep slipping and slipping and slipping because you have so many windings. So just give yourself that much. Okay, and so now what you want to do, and that distance will give you the proper amount of windings. Let's see if we can, all right, there we go. And there you go. So that's the first string, and you'll see all the windings are nice and uniform. Okay, so now we're going to do the G string again, like before. We pull it through our tailpiece and on top of our saddle. We come all the way across, and so I'm going to stick it through the hole again. Again, I like to make sure that it's straight. And you see here we don't have a pole piece to measure, but just kind of guesstimate. And now we're going to want to turn the opposite way. Oops, there we go. So we're winding this way on the right, whereas on the other side we were winding up. So it's the opposite. Alright, and when you're done with the other side, it should look something like that. And that's how you want the strings to be. You want them on this side, you want them to come inside the headstock. And on this side, inside the headstock. See how they're coming down like that, like a V? That's how you want it. Like, you don't want this on the other side. Like the string, you don't want this on this side and this on this side. You want it inside the headstock, not outside. So, like that. Now, what you want to do is cut off the string ends. So kind of just give them a stretch like that, a kink, I mean. So, and see why we do this, because they're pretty annoying. So you give it a kink again, just to sort of lock it in, and be careful not to cut anything else, and you just sort of cut close like that. And that's the first one done. And keep track of all of your trash. Like, I'm putting this all in a little pile right next to me, because again, you don't want to step on this stuff. It hurts like hell. Way worse than stepping on a Lego, trust me. Again, kink it, cut it. And there you go, nice and uniform. Again, you see how the strings wrap around each other. Very evenly, very one on top of the other. See that? How many wraps? Minimum. I like to do a minimum of 2, maximum of 3. So 2 minimum, 3 max, maybe 4. But any more or less than that, you're gonna start having some tuning problems. That's what I find, anyways. All right. So the last step you want to do when you change your strings is you want to tune it up. So the tuning doesn't have to be exact, just something to give you some leverage. So we're going to stretch the strings. And the reason you want to stretch your strings is that'll help lock the strings in place, so that way they're not slipping on you and going out of tune all the time. So the way I got it is you just sort of lift up and stretch like that all the way across, pulling up. So I'm pulling up and pushing with my thumbs, going all across the strings. And I'll give you an example of this. So like, let's say these strings. So listen to this string. Ba, 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 ba. And when I stretch it, it dropped in pitch. And that's because you need to stretch out the strings. Because if you were to just, put the strings on and not do any stretching, it would be in tune initially, but then when you went to start strumming and bending strings, it'll sound like that. So what you want to do is, with a tuner, plug in the tuner. If you have a tuner app on your phone, just keep tuning the guitar and stretching it. Tune the guitar again and stretch the strings. Tune the guitar again, stretch the strings. Eventually it'll get to the point to where the pitch won't drop anymore. Maybe a little bit on the wound strings, but generally that's how you want to do it, is just keep stretching and playing also while you're stretching strings. That way you can really verify if it's staying in tune or not. If it won't stay in tune, that's because you probably are messy up here and you don't have them nice and even like that. Okay, but once you do that, you're ready to rock. Thanks for watching.